Finn, a young fox with fur as red as autumn leaves, lived in a cozy den at the edge of a vast, enchanted forest. The forest was filled with towering trees, winding streams, and mysterious paths, but it was the quiet nights and the bright, starry skies that captivated Finn the most. He would lie on his back and gaze up at the twinkling stars, his mind wandering to far-off places. For as long as he could remember, Finn had been enchanted by the idea of a magical land, an ethereal place beyond the forest, where dreams came alive and anything was possible. It was a place he had heard of in stories from the elder animals, stories about glowing trees, rivers that sang, and creatures who could talk. But no one knew if this magical land was real or just a tale spun by the winds. One evening, after a long day of exploring the forest, Finn lay on his favorite hill, staring at the stars when a thought struck him. What if the magical land was real? What if it was out there, waiting for him to find it? His heart began to race with excitement. He couldn't live his life wondering. Finn had to know. "I'm going to find it," Finn whispered to the night sky, determination in his eyes. "I'm going to find the magical land." The very next morning, Finn packed a small satchel with berries, nuts, and a little water, ready for the adventure ahead. He kissed his family goodbye, promising to return with tales of the magical land. The forest seemed even more beautiful today, filled with possibilities. He started his journey toward the unknown, following paths he had never dared to walk before. Finn wandered deeper into the forest than he ever had, his paws crunching the dry leaves beneath him. The sun was high, casting warm light through the trees, but he didn't stop. He was determined to reach the magical land. Every rustle of the wind, every shadow in the trees, seemed to call out to him, urging him forward. Hours passed and the forest grew quieter. Finn had ventured so far that he no longer recognized the trees around him. The towering oaks and pines seemed to have turned into ancient, twisted trees that reached out like long fingers. But Finn didn't feel afraid. He felt a pull as if the land itself was guiding him. As dusk began to settle, Finn noticed something strange, a faint glow ahead, shimmering softly through the trees. His heart raced as he trotted forward, his eyes wide with wonder. Could this be it? Could this be the magical land he had dreamed about? He pushed through a thicket of bushes and stepped into a clearing. There, in front of him, stood a grand tree unlike any he had ever seen. Its bark shimmered with a soft, golden light, and its leaves sparkled like jewels. The tree's roots wound deep into the earth, and from them, a gentle stream of glowing water flowed, winding around the base. The air was thick with the scent of flowers that Finn had never smelled before, and the ground was soft with a carpet of vibrant moss. Finn's breath caught in his throat. This was no ordinary tree. This was the heart of the magical land he had been searching for. Finn stepped forward, his paws brushing against the glowing moss. He marveled at the tree's beauty, its light filling him with a sense of peace and wonder. As he circled the tree, he noticed a small door at its base, just big enough for a fox to slip through. The door was carved with intricate patterns of stars and moons, and it glowed with the same soft light as the tree. Without a second thought, Finn squeezed through the door and found himself in a world unlike any he could have imagined. The moment he stepped through, he was greeted by a soft breeze, and the world around him came alive. The sky was a brilliant shade of purple, filled with swirling clouds of gold and silver. Floating islands dotted the horizon, their edges glowing faintly, and in the distance he saw majestic creatures flying, winged horses with golden manes and shimmering unicorns with horns that sparkled like diamonds. The ground beneath him was soft and springy, like the fluffiest cloud, and the flowers bloomed with colors Finn had never seen before, vibrant shades of pink, blue, and violet that glowed in the dim light. This is incredible," Finn gasped, his voice filled with awe. "It's real. The magical land is real." Finn couldn't believe his eyes. Every part of this land was filled with wonder. Creatures from his wildest dreams were all around him. But the most amazing thing was the sense of peace and harmony that filled the air. The magical land wasn't just beautiful, it was alive with a quiet, kind energy that made Finn feel at home. As Finn ventured deeper into the magical land, he met its inhabitants, creatures of all shapes and sizes, some he recognized from the forest, and others that seemed to come straight from fairy tales. There were talking rabbits with silver fur, glowing foxes who could change their colors, and even gentle dragons with scales that shimmered like the night sky. One creature that particularly caught Finn's attention was a wise, old owl with feathers as white as snow. The owl perched on a branch of a large tree and watched Finn with curious, knowing eyes. "Welcome to the magical land, young fox," the owl said in a voice that was deep and calming. "I am Orion, the keeper of this land. I've been waiting for you." "Waiting for me?" Finn asked, his eyes wide. How did you know I was coming? Orion smiled, his feathers ruffling slightly. This land knows those who seek it. Your heart has always been filled with wonder, Finn. You've always believed in the impossible, and that belief is what brought you here. Few can find this place, but those who do are chosen by the land itself. Finn's heart swelled with pride. He had always been a dreamer, and now it seemed that his dreams had led him to this extraordinary place. I don't know what to say, Finn stammered. This place is more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. Orion nodded wisely. The magical land is a reflection of the heart. Its beauty is drawn from the dreams and hopes of those who believe in it. It is a place where anything is possible, where imagination has no limits. Finn looked around in awe, his mind racing with all the possibilities of this wondrous world. Can I stay here? He asked, his voice filled with hope. I've always dreamed of a place like this. Could I live here and explore its wonders? Orion's eyes softened. The magical land welcomes all who seek it with a pure heart. But you must remember that no land is perfect, and every place, even one as magical as this, has its challenges. You must be ready to face them. What kind of challenges? Finn asked, curious but also a little nervous. Orion tilted his head. The biggest challenge of all is knowing when to let go of your dreams and return to the world you came from. The magical land can only be accessed by those who are willing to leave it behind when the time is right. You may come here to discover something important, but there is always a time to return. Finn's mind swirled with these words. The idea of leaving this magical world was difficult to fathom, but something in his heart told him that Orion was right. The magical land had given him the most incredible adventure, but he couldn't stay forever. As the days passed, Finn explored the land more and more, meeting creatures from every corner of the world. He danced in fields of glowing flowers, rode on the backs of gentle unicorns, and swam in crystal-clear lakes that shimmered under the stars. He learned the secrets of the land, how the rivers sang, how the trees whispered ancient wisdom, and how the stars in the sky could be rearranged with just a thought. But despite all the wonders, Finn began to feel a longing deep inside. He missed his family, his home in the forest, and the simple life he had left behind. He realized that, while the magical land was beautiful and filled with incredible adventures, his true place was back in the forest with those he loved. One day, after spending a quiet evening with Orion, Finn made his decision. I've learned so much here, Finn said, looking up at the wise owl. But I think it's time for me to return home. My heart tells me it's time to go back to the forest. Orion nodded approvingly. The magical land will always be here for you, Finn. And when the time comes you can return. But remember, the magic you seek is already within you. It is the dreams in your heart that brought you here, and it is your heart that will guide you back. Finn smiled, feeling at peace. With a final glance at the magical land, he stepped back through the glowing door in the tree, his paws once again touching the familiar ground of the forest. As he walked back home, Finn realized that the true magic wasn't just in the land he had discovered, it was in the dreams and hopes he carried within himself. And no matter where he went, the magical land would always live on in his heart.